The final round at Bay Hill was shaping up to be exactly the kind of Sunday drama that makes the Arnold Palmer Invitational one of the most exciting events on the PGA Tour calendar. Daniel Berger was clinging to a one-shot lead over Russell Henley. Shane Lowry was lurking just 2 shots back, hungry for redemption after a painful collapse at an earlier tournament. A dozen other players were within striking distance. Bay Hill's treacherous back nine was ready to decide everything. It looked like a classic Sunday in professional golf. But while the cameras were focused on the leaders, while the broadcasters were building their narratives around Berger's quest for a 5th PGA Tour victory and Lowry's search for peace of mind, something else entirely was unfolding on a different part of the golf course. Something that nobody in the broadcast truck noticed in real time. Something that would ultimately overshadow everything else that happened that day. Because Tiger Woods was watching from home, and Tiger Woods saw something that nobody else caught. The tournament setup. The 2026 Arnold Palmer Invitational was supposed to deliver a Sunday for the ages. Daniel Berger, the 32-year-old Florida State alumnus, had carried a one-shot lead into the final round after 3 days of excellent golf. Russell Henley was right behind him, dangerous and determined. Shane Lowry, still carrying the emotional weight of his Cognizant Classic collapse earlier in the season, was just 2 shots back and desperate for a big result to restore his confidence. The leaderboard was packed. Bay Hill's back nine was waiting. Every ingredient for a memorable final round was in place. And for most of the day, that is exactly what the tournament delivered. Players made birdies and bogeys. Leads changed. Drama built on the back nine the way it always does at this course. The golf was everything the sports fans had hoped for. But underneath all of that genuine sporting drama, a separate story was quietly developing. A story that had nothing to do with who was going to win the tournament and everything to do with whether what people were watching was actually what it appeared to be. The incident on the 12th hole. The 12th hole at Bay Hill is one of those places where tournaments go to die. It is a 208-yard par 3 guarded by water on the left and bunkers on the right. It has claimed more victims than any other hole on the golf course. Players who have played Bay Hill many times understand the unspoken rule of the 12th: survival is the goal. Heroics are not required or recommended. Get your par and move on. On Sunday, one player in contention found himself in a difficult position on this hole. His tee shot found a challenging lie in the rough just off the edge of the green. Not a disaster, but not easy either. The kind of lie that requires careful thinking and precise execution to escape without dropping a shot. What happened next is now the subject of serious scrutiny, an official investigation, and a debate that has spread through the entire golf world. According to multiple sources who have reviewed the broadcast footage carefully, the incident occurred as the player prepared to play his second shot from that difficult lie. High-definition broadcast cameras captured something that, at normal speed and in the flow of live television coverage, went completely unnoticed by officials, broadcasters, and viewers alike. The player grounded his club behind his ball in what officials are now describing as an unusual and potentially deliberate manner. Under Rule 8.1 of the Rules of Golf, a player is strictly prohibited from deliberately improving the area of their intended swing. The footage, when slowed down and analyzed frame by frame, appears to show the player pressing down on the grass behind his ball in a way that could be interpreted as improving his lie before playing the shot. Making the situation more complicated and more suspicious, the player's caddy can be seen stepping into the frame at that exact moment, appearing to position himself in a way that shielded certain camera angles from clearly capturing what was happening. Whether that positioning was deliberate or simply coincidental is now one of the central questions of the investigation. After this moment, the player executed a nearly perfect chip shot that stopped just 3 feet from the hole. He made the par putt comfortably. That par save crucially kept him within striking distance of the leaders as the back nine began to unfold. Without it, his score would have been a bogey, dropping him further down the leaderboard and significantly reducing his chances of finishing inside the top 10. He walked off the 12th green having saved par. He continued his round. He finished with a final round 68, one of the best scores of the day. He signed his scorecard, he collected his prize money, and he almost certainly believed that his day was done and his result was secure. But somebody was watching. Tiger Woods spots what everyone else missed. Tiger Woods has been recovering from his latest back surgery at his home on Jupiter Island in Florida. He had the Arnold Palmer Invitational on television, the way many former champions watch tournaments they are not competing in. casually in the background of an otherwise quiet Sunday. But Tiger Woods does not watch golf the way ordinary people watch golf. He watches it the way a man watches something he has spent his entire life studying and mastering. He notices things. He sees details that do not register for anyone else because his eye has been trained by decades of competing at the absolute highest level of the sport. He saw the incident on the 12th hole. He saw it in real time during the live broadcast at normal speed, and he recognized immediately what he was looking at. Within hours of the final round concluding, word reached PGA Tour officials that Tiger Woods had flagged a potential rules violation from the day's coverage. By Sunday evening, a quiet investigation was already underway. Tour officials were reviewing footage. Broadcast partners were being contacted for additional camera angles and high-definition recordings. The player in question had no idea yet that anything was happening. Tiger's eye for detail is simply unmatched, one source close to the situation said. He saw something in real time that everyone else missed entirely. Without his intervention, this violation probably never gets caught. It would have stayed buried in the broadcast footage forever. By Monday morning, the player had been formally notified that he was under investigation, and the golf world braced for what was coming. Who is the player? By Monday morning, the player's name had been circulating through golf circles for hours. Every journalist covering the tour knew it. Every player in the locker room suspected it. It was, as one insider described it, one of the worst-kept secrets in the sport. But until the PGA Tour makes its official public announcement, the identity of the player remains formally unconfirmed. What is known from multiple sources paints a picture that has left the golf world genuinely stunned. The player finished inside the top 10 at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. His final round 68 was one of the best scores of the day and vaulted him significantly up the leaderboard, earning him a meaningful paycheck and valuable FedEx Cup points. Without the par save on the 12th hole, the par save that is now at the center of the controversy, his final score would have been at least one stroke higher. That single stroke difference would have dropped him multiple positions on the leaderboard and cost him tens of thousands of dollars in prize money. The player has been competing on the PGA Tour for more than a decade. He has won multiple times. He has contended at major championships. He has built a reputation over the years as one of the more respected and well-liked figures in the professional locker room. That is precisely what makes this situation so deeply shocking to everyone who has followed his career. He is not the type of guy you would ever expect to be involved in something like this, one veteran PGA Tour player told a golf media outlet on the condition of anonymity. That is why everyone is so stunned. If it were someone with a history of questionable behavior, it would still be bad, but at least it would make some kind of sense. But this guy, it just does not make sense. Nobody saw this coming. The caddy's role. One of the most uncomfortable aspects of the entire situation is the role the player's caddy appears to have played in the incident. The caddy has worked with this player for nearly a decade. They are known throughout the tour as one of the more close-knit and trusted player-caddy partnerships in professional golf. They have won together, contended together, been through difficult stretches together. The relationship goes well beyond the professional. The broadcast footage shows the caddy stepping into the frame at the specific moment the alleged violation occurred, appearing to position his body in a way that blocked or partially obscured certain camera angles from clearly capturing what was happening behind the ball. Whether that was a deliberate act of concealment, an attempt to protect his player from being caught in a compromising moment, or simply the caddy moving naturally into his normal position for the upcoming shot is now a significant part of the investigation. PGA Tour rules officials interviewed both the player and the caddy separately on Monday. Their accounts, according to sources, are consistent with each other. Both maintain that nothing improper occurred. The player insists that any contact between his club and the ground was entirely incidental and not in any way intended to improve his lie. The caddy's statement reportedly supports this version of events completely. But the video evidence tells a different story, and in the era of high-definition broadcast cameras and frame-by-frame digital analysis, the evidence is considerably clearer than either man might have hoped. The investigation, what the rules actually say. The PGA Tour's Rules Committee convened an emergency session on Monday morning at Tour headquarters to review the evidence and determine the appropriate course of action. The process is deliberately thorough and deliberately slow. It has to be frame-by-frame analysis of broadcast footage, Consultation with the network's production team, who have access to camera angles and recording quality that the tour's own officials may not have direct access to. Formal interviews with the player, the caddy, and any witnesses who were in a position to observe what happened on the 12th hole. All of it must be completed carefully before any final ruling can be issued. One tour official explained the approach clearly. The integrity of the competition is the most important thing the tour protects. They will not rush to judgment, but they will not avoid the facts either. Whatever the evidence shows, the process will follow it honestly and transparently. By Monday afternoon, a preliminary finding had been reached. Sources confirmed that the Rules Committee determined there was clear and convincing evidence that a violation of Rule 8.1 had in fact occurred. The player had grounded his club in a manner that improved his lie, giving him a meaningful advantage on the chip shot that followed. But here is where the situation becomes significantly more complicated than a simple rules violation. Under the rules of golf, the severity of the penalty depends entirely on whether the violation was intentional or accidental. If the player genuinely did not realize he was improving his lie, if the grounding was genuinely incidental and unconscious, the standard penalty is 2 strokes assessed retroactively to his score. His final round score would be amended, his finishing position would drop, and he would lose a significant amount of prize money and FedEx Cup points. However, if the violation is determined to be intentional, if the evidence supports the conclusion that the player knew exactly what he was doing and did it deliberately, the penalty is disqualification. Not a 2-stroke adjustment, complete disqualification from the tournament, all prize money forfeited, all FedEx Cup points lost, and a permanent mark against his name in the records of the sport. Determining intent is the hardest part of the entire process. We are dealing with a genuine gray area here, one rules expert explained. You can see clearly what happened in the footage. You cannot see inside the player's head. You can analyze the action frame by frame. You cannot analyze the thought process that preceded it. That is the fundamental challenge we are facing. The options on the table. The PGA Tour has 3 realistic options available to it as the investigation concludes. The first option is to assess a 2-stroke penalty retroactively. This would amend the player's final score from a 68 to a 70. Drop his finishing position significantly, cost him a meaningful amount of prize money, and reduce his FedEx Cup points total for the season. It would be painful financially and reputationally, but would not end his tournament or his season. The second option is disqualification, reserved for cases where the evidence of deliberate and intentional rule breaking is clear and convincing enough to meet that higher standard. Disqualification would be career-defining in the worst possible way. Every tournament result he has ever achieved would be viewed through a different lens. Every future round he plays would be shadowed by the memory of what happened at Bay Hill. The third option is to take no formal action if the evidence is ultimately determined to be insufficiently conclusive. In this scenario, the tour might issue a private warning to the player without any public announcement or official penalty. The player keeps his result. The situation is closed officially, but unofficially the suspicion would follow him regardless. By Monday evening, the player had been formally notified that he was under active investigation. He had not spoken publicly. Sources described him as devastated by the situation, maintaining his innocence firmly and deeply anxious about what the final ruling would mean for his reputation and his career. A final ruling was expected within 48 hours of Monday's preliminary finding. What this scandal means for golf. Regardless of what the final ruling ultimately says, this scandal has already changed something about how the golf world views the integrity of the game. Several uncomfortable but important conversations are now unavoidable. The first and most immediate lesson is about the role that technology and outside observation play in protecting the sport's integrity. Golf has always operated on a foundation of honesty, on the assumption that players call penalties on themselves and uphold the rules even when nobody is watching. That tradition is real and genuinely admirable, but this situation demonstrates that self-policing is not always sufficient. High-definition cameras, frame-by-frame analysis, and the sharp eyes of people watching from home, including former champions like Tiger Woods, now serve as an essential additional layer of oversight. Without Tiger Woods watching from his Jupiter Island home on a Sunday afternoon, this violation would almost certainly never have been caught. It went unnoticed by the officials on site. It went unnoticed by the broadcast team. It went unnoticed by everyone in the gallery. One man watching television in Florida spotted what everyone else missed. That is an uncomfortable thought. If one violation slipped through and was only caught by extraordinary luck and an extraordinary eye, how many other violations over the years have gone completely unnoticed? The second uncomfortable question is about frequency. The margins in professional golf are so thin that a single stroke can mean the difference between a $1 million paycheck and a $200,000 paycheck. The financial incentive to gain an illegal edge, however small, has never been greater than it is in the modern era of professional golf. Most players resist that temptation completely and always will. But the question of how often violations occur and go undetected is one that the sport now has to take seriously. The third dimension of this story is the deeply personal one for the player involved. Whatever the final ruling says, his situation is now impossible in certain ways. If he is cleared of any wrongdoing, the footage still exists, the accusation still happened. The suspicion will follow him regardless of what the official conclusion says. Players who are exonerated in these situations rarely escape completely clean. The doubt lingers. If he is penalized or disqualified, his reputation is permanently and irreversibly damaged. A decade of honest competition, multiple victories, major championship contention, the respect of his peers, all of it now lives in the shadow of one moment on a par 3 in Orlando on a Sunday afternoon. Either way, his legacy is now tied to this moment in a way that he cannot change or escape. What this means for Tiger Woods. For Tiger Woods, this episode is another reminder of something that the golf world occasionally needs to be reminded of. His relationship with and influence over professional golf does not begin and end when he tees up a golf ball. Even when he is recovering from surgery and watching from a couch in Jupiter Island, he is shaping the sport, protecting it, using the knowledge and the eye that he built over 30 years of competing at the absolute highest level to notice things that others cannot see. There is something fitting about the fact that the man who has done more than anyone alive to define modern professional golf and to elevate its standards and its profile is also the man whose intervention may have prevented a cheating scandal from going unpunished. He did not play a single hole at the Arnold Palmer Invitational in 2026, but in a very real sense, Tiger Woods was the most important person at Bay Hill that Sunday. What happens next? The Arnold Palmer Invitational has an official winner, trophies have been presented, checks have been cashed, the tournament is in the record books. But for one player, this tournament will never be just another result on a long career resume. It will be the moment that everything changed. The moment the cameras caught what should have stayed hidden, or the moment an innocent action was catastrophically misread, depending on which version of events turns out to be true. The PGA Tour's final ruling will answer the official question. It will determine the penalty, adjust the records if necessary, and close the formal investigation. What it cannot do is close the conversation. The questions this scandal has raised about integrity, about technology, about the human temptation to gain an edge when the money is large and the cameras are supposed to be looking elsewhere, those questions will stay open for a long time. The golf world is watching, and this time so is Tiger Woods.